Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's live episode, Ask Me Almost Anything. I don't know what's coming at me today. My name is Glenn Gers. I am the Chief Operating Everything here at Writing for Screens, a channel that I developed in order to take some of the skills, tools, insights that I had to figure out for myself in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. I don't have anybody online yet. Anyway, I have created this channel. It is here to give you, there's over 50 lesson videos. If you look down on the main, this is a screen grab of the main page at the moment. If you look down a bit, you will see that there is three main playlists that have 50 10-minute videos on various topics. They are very, very easy to sort through because the title and the thumbnail are just big, bold announcements of what it is about. Genre, flashbacks, characters, dialogues, all this stuff for you. It is here. Please take a look at these first three playlists. They are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. Those are the names of the first three playlists as you scroll down on the channel. That's 50 free lessons that I've tried to give you everything that I know in nice digestible sets of ideas for you to try out. There is no rule, there is no order to do them in, there is no formula. I do not know which things will work for you, so I gave them all to you, and you have to figure out for yourself what works for you, because every artist must make their own path. You have to figure out what kind of things you want to write, what kind of things you're good at writing, what kind of work you can do, what kind of work that you believe in, and you've got to figure that all out for yourself because it's different for everybody. So all I've tried to do is give you some bits and pieces to work with, some tools for your toolkit. All right, so that is it. When I got finished with that, I then started doing live streams, which I do every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. Come here and open up the chat for questions. Anybody who wants to take a look, please feel free. I am also on Substack. Writing for Screens on Substack is going to start to put a bunch of things there for you. And there is a book, link in the description. A book taking all of my lessons plus new stuff, putting it out there for you so that you can look at it anytime you want, choose a lesson. There's no you don't have to read the whole thing in order. You don't have to read the whole thing. Just take the pieces that seem to work for you and you go do your work, because that is what it is all about. I'm going to say hi to YX11 and to Sonia. How are you? It's quiet today. I wonder what it is. Anyway, so we only got a handful of people here, which is interesting because today I said, I come in, I have these topics I bring in, they take up a lot of time, so I didn't do one this time to leave it free. Please feel free to ask questions. If not, I guess I will just start thinking about things that I wanted to talk about. This is fascinating, actually. I've never had so few people on. Anyway, the book is out. I am now starting to learn about book promotion. That is one of the most frightening and painful parts of being a self-published author. And all I can say is I'm learning, doing it a little bit at a time, putting out some feelers to other podcasters and screenwriting channels, see if they want to talk to me about my book. We will see. Thank you for the book. I have it next to my computer. Yay! Thank you, Michael. That is so cool. Hello, Sir Chester Bellington. I am glad you are back. Please feel free to ask questions. I can't be certain, Jeff says. I think one of my comments is on the back of your book. I'm a published author. Yeah, I did. Hold on a second. Let me show you. All right. The book's back cover is, let's see if we can do this. Yeah, this is just a whole bunch of comments that I sorted through to try and advertise the book, to try and promote the book, not by hyping it myself, but by saying, look, people really like this. You guys, because I have to say, I had over 2,000 comments to choose from on my, I now have 500 videos. Anyway, so thank you for commenting, Jeff. I figured if I was just snipping out pieces of comments that were public, I shouldn't try and credit them. But I am so glad, Jeff, that you made the cut. Hello, Chaos Star. Chaos Star asks, what are your thoughts on K.M. Weiland's character arcs? How important are concepts like the want, the need, the lie, and the ghost in character creation? Oh, Ches, I was wondering, you said it's been a long time, and I'm like, I don't think I know Sir Chester Bellington. Okay, so Chaos Star, let's talk about this. K.M. Weiland's character arcs. First of all, I have not personally read or learned about K.M. Weiland's character arcs, but I have heard about the want, the need, the lie, and the ghost. And one of the things is, please do take a look at this video. In general, my feeling about anybody's system is covered here in this video, Screenwriting Rules. I will put a link to that in the description when we are done. Making a note to do that. Screenwriting Rules, in which I say the basic idea here is, I don't think there's any bad rules if they work for you. People have all sorts of systems and plans and beliefs. Some people feel that you have to have like a balance of characters, or another one feels you have to have conflict and whatever it is, if it is helping you to write the things that you want to write, the way that you want to write, not trying to figure out what's going to work for the business, because that's the one thing I say doesn't usually work. There's good general rules to understand about the business. And when I talk about the business, I'm talking about the American business, because that's where I am and that's where I worked and that's what I understand. And certainly there are certain rules that you would want to know the business follows. They aren't actual rules. They aren't absolute rules to screenwriting, because the fact is lots of people break those rules. But things like keeping your script between 100 to 110 pages is probably a good idea. Having 3 acts is usually a good idea for the business, not for the art. So my basic feeling is, if these character arc concepts help you to fill in the things you need, then they're good. I do not believe that they are truthful in the sense that all things follow these rules. That's the one thing I won't buy, because I can always find some example of something that I've actually liked that doesn't follow those rules. So let's talk about these, and please feel free, Chaos Star, to explain more if you feel like it would help. What are my thoughts? The concept of the want, the need, the lie, and the ghost. Well, I can tell you without knowing too much about it, the want and the need, this is a tricky one. In my personal way to break this down is to give you 6 questions to ask. But that comes down to the same thing, because one of the first questions is, what does this character want? Now, dividing the want and the need, sometimes that is true. For instance, sometimes you'll have somebody who wants great riches, but they need to stay and take care of the family farm. So sometimes those things can be in conflict. If the want and the need are the same thing, I don't know why you would need 2 of them. And usually somebody wants something because they need it. In other words, they may not need it like, oh, I'm going to starve to death without it, but they need it emotionally. They need it for themselves. And that is the key to most good stories, is that usually there's a character who wants something. To get down to the want versus the need, I don't see it. I don't personally feel like there's always a specific conflict between want and need. Likewise, the lie, I don't know what that is, but my guess is that the lie is a way of understanding that people tend to have a persona, a thing that they say about themselves, which is covering for something that they do not want known. We all have things that we are trying to protect. But honestly, I am sure that Weiland has a very specific outline of these things. The ghost, it sounds sort of Jungian to me, and I don't know what they are, but I do know they are not universal. The question is, do they help you when you look at your specific project and you say, oh, look, now following this plan, I recognize that this character has this want and this need, and that helps me to write a scene. I'm all for it. If you are finding yourself spending a lot of time charting out these qualities that somebody has said are necessary, you may be actually taking time away from doing the work of the creating scenes, creating story events, creating dialogue. So I worry about that because a lot of people feel like, oh, if I name the need, then I have done my job and I can have a one sentence where somebody says what the need is. Usually these things have to play out in actions, and by dramatic actions, I mean things that people are doing in regard to each other. It doesn't have to be action like punching. It can be an action like making a request. That's an action. So my answer would be, if these things are helping you get your script written, great. If you are finding them taking up your time and not making things easier, don't do them. That's really the basic for any system, because any system of art, there are some people who believe in like a thesis and synthesis, thesis and there's all sorts of plans. There's the story circle, which has 8 steps. All stories will not follow that plan. But if your story follows that plan, go for it. So that's what I think, Chaos Star. Hi, Thomas Lewis. How do you motivate yourself when there's a day you don't feel like writing? Sometimes I struggle to sit down and just do it, and would love to hear your tips and tricks. Absolutely. I have actually done a live stream on this, but let's talk about it now. The first thing I would say is small steps. In other words, if you are not feeling up to it, just do a little. You don't say to yourself, oh, I've got to put in 5 hours today. If you're really not feeling right about it, something's going on in your life, or you're just whatever, just do something. Just do an hour, do a sentence, do a paragraph, something that helps. The other thing is, I would say what helps me is getting specific. Almost always, I unless I've left off with something that was working or a puzzle, I look at it like, oh, damn. So the first thing you do, the first way to get through not feeling like writing is open the document, open the folder. Don't feel ready, just open it, look at it, start, because then you're going to get to something specific. And that's the key for me, is to say, okay, like this morning, I'm working on my novel, and I felt, I knew I should get it out of the way. So first thing in the morning, I opened the document and I was like, oh, the last time I was there, I was on this scene. I'm going through the scene by scene and trying to clean up some issues. And once you're looking at a specific scene for a specific character, either you'll have something there, something you've started that you can say, okay, well, how can I make this work better? This is a little too fast. This is a little too vague. This is a little too on the nose. Whatever it is, you're going to find something that you're like, I can work on that. If you say like, oh my God, that scene that I wrote yesterday is perfect, move on to the next scene. But the main thing is look for something specific to do. I can describe this location. I can lay out some rough dialogue, something that you can do. Usually what happens then is, especially if you've been working on it for a while, it starts to kick in and you get a little bit that you want to do. If you really, really don't feel like it at all, is there something that's sort of logistical to do? Like, just like changing somebody's name or going through and putting in proper dates, or something that's just sort of mechanical, but you might as well use the time that you're not feeling inspired to get that done. So those are my first 2 tips. Is 1, don't wait till you feel good to open it. I'm not saying you're going to necessarily feel much better, but at least sit down, Open your notebook, open your phone, open your computer, whatever it is, and open up the project. Look at the project specifically. That's the first thing. Second thing is choose a small specific task. This one scene, this one page, whatever it is, that's the best thing I know. And then the other thing is, if it doesn't work, do a little something so that you don't feel like you've messed up, and then close it and start again the next day. Sometimes weeks will go by where you just do a teeny tiny bit, but at the end of that, you'll look back, you'll suddenly say, oh, wow, I outlined 17 scenes. I didn't think I could, but now I have 17 scenes to start to sketch in. Writing the outline, asking questions, starting to rough in the dialogue, starting to rough in the description. Just whatever you can do, even if it's bad. Do not worry about being good or bad. Just get something out of your head onto the page. Okay. Chez says, since I was last here, I've been busy with other hobbies. I want to get back, but when I write, I always judge it as I am writing. Aha, I want to get back into this, but getting in the way. Yes, actually similar vibe to the above question. So the question basically is, what do you do when you are criticizing your work? And once again, I would say the first thing is, and this is hard, if you are criticizing it, don't say to yourself, okay, I must never I can don't start until I have a better attitude. You'll never have a better attitude. So the point is, at least say to that critical voice, go screw yourself. say if your critical voice is saying something, if they're saying, by the way, if your critical voice is just saying you're bad or you're not good enough, it's irrelevant. The question that you have to work on is this scene working to accomplish this emotional step, this emotional movement or prep for the emotional movement? What is going on in that story? Don't decide whether or not it's good. Decide whether or not it does its own task. It's everything that you're working on has some purpose. Like you want the character to express themselves or to change their situation with their boss or whatever it is. There's something happening in a moment. And the key, I would say, to everything is get in that moment, get out of your moment, get out of your head, get out of your judgment, and into the characters, because they don't know you exist. So they don't care if you're being criticized. So the thing that I would keep saying is, when you do it, small steps, and be specific. Be in the moment of the story. If you don't know the story, work on the outline, work on what are the steps of the story. If it helps, if you're feeling really bad, write down the negative thought somewhere and try and turn it into a question. In other words, if somebody's like, you're not good enough, well, try and turn that into a question. What specifically would make this better? What would make it good enough? Also, if you're saying what will make, it can help to really ask that question, because you'll find this most of the time, that negative energy is very unrealistic. It's full of crap, because it will say something like, you're not good enough to get, $100 million budget. Well, probably not. Not now. You're just starting out. So the answer is, good enough for what? And do remember that whatever challenge you're working on is the real challenge and would be the real accomplishment. So if simply writing an outline is something you're having a hard time doing, then writing the outline is a major accomplishment. And that's all you need to know is I just need to finish this. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It just has to be done. And then what happens is, as you work on it, you're like, how can I make it better for me? Not for the voices, because that voice is almost never your voice. That's the key thing. When you have a critical voice in your head, you may feel like it's you, but the truth is it is something you fear, or that you are trying to channel what you think someone else will say. Either one of those are not your problem. They're not your business. Your job is to try and do the thing. But do recognize that almost always, if you have a negative voice, that's actually a fear. You are afraid someone will say it. So you are saying it, proactively, so that you can say, if I can hear every negative comment before I start, then I won't make those mistakes. That is, by the way, not true. You always make mistakes. It is a process of trial and error. That is how creative work works. So therefore, you're going to make mistakes. But what I would suggest most is, whatever that voice is doing, just say, later. I will deal with this later. I will deal with this when I have a finished draft. Then I will see, is it not good enough to make money? Is it not good enough for me to buy a house with it? Because those are stupid fears. Those are stupid. That's like saying, I am unable currently to take over a country. I am currently unable to fly to the moon. Yeah, that's right. You are. That's not an appropriate desire. If you are a beginning writer and you are worrying that you are not good enough to make hundreds of millions of dollars, yeah, you're not. That's okay, because what you have to do is keep working and get better. You just don't know what's going to happen if you do the work. It is impossible to be reassured before you work. So live with the uncertainty. Live with your scale. If what your scale is I have never finished a script, or I have never written a horror movie, or I have never written a script that's under 300 pages, whatever it is, that's your job. And all other questions are simply irrelevant until that job is done. That's my first step in getting best. Do remember that almost every negative thought you have is actually a fear. And the point is, what's the worst that can happen? You write something and it's bad. So what? I write things that are bad all the time. I was just reading my novel. It's really bad right now. There's parts of it that are okay, but none of it is great. None of it is where I need it to be. But that's what happens, is that you start with the approximate version, and then you start to make it better. What can make it better? And that it's a specific question. What can make this scene better? What can make this story better? Michael says, I took a class on the new wave. It influenced many filmmakers of the 70s and 80s. Many endings had audiences scratching their heads. Is there an audience for that type of film today? Yes, there sure is. It is called indie film. Or art film, the two genres that you would say that inherit directly from the 70s and from the new wave that came before it. The new wave, by the way, was a group of filmmakers influenced by French, Italian, Japanese, German, Swedish filmmakers who were operating outside of Hollywood and therefore were not following the Hollywood rules. They were making up their own rules. That blew everyone's mind, because from the 20s through the 60s, Hollywood had a lock on filmmaking. They literally owned the theaters. You could not make or show a film. That began to break down in the 1960s, and so people started to say, oh, wow, we can do a story that doesn't have a happy ending. We can do a story that is just about people living their lives in a city and their loves and problems. We can do a story which is broken into different sections and the audience has to figure out the connections for themselves. Those are all possible, but they weren't possible in Hollywood. So that's what the new wave was. There was the French new wave, there were the Italian neorealists, there's all sorts of things. Anyway, the answer is, currently what we have called indie film since the 1980s, 90s, is now a standard genre. There are people who like it, and there are people who go to watch it, and there's certainly an audience for it. Hi, Hasko. Weiland knows very little about how to write well. Her novels begin with over 2,000 words of exposition. No good fiction ever does that. I don't know. I'm going to say that I wouldn't say no good fiction writer ever does that, because it's very possible to do that. There's some novels that are all exposition. They're in fact novels that simply there's an omniscient narrator who's just telling you the story. That's all exposition. So I would say I didn't know Weiland was a novelist, but I would say that I can't judge Weiland myself, but long sections of exposition, that's okay. It can work, especially in a novel. What's my biggest point of friction, Alex asks. Coming up with what happens next in the story, outlining or unfolding the action with adequate beats and compelling language. That's a great question. My personal strength is figuring out the story. I will spend way too long figuring out the story, and I do struggle emotionally with groping towards the beats and the language, which means the scenes, the moments themselves, and how I'm going to present them. I don't struggle with that as much, the language, in screenplays anymore, because I've done 50 screenplays in my life, and I have a style sort of just, I've worked out the way that I like to write scripts. So at least I'm not worried about the language. My problem is I am now not writing scripts. I'm trying to learn how to write novels. And that's a whole other thing because, first of all, each novel has its own language, at least the kind I'm writing. You get some writers who they just write always in the same language, the same style. Hemingway, they have their voice and they try and use it consistently. For me, I don't know exactly what the voice of the novel I'm writing is. So that's really the hard part for me. Okay, Chaz says, very good advice. Thank you. Small steps has become one of my favorite writing mantras, Sonia says. Thank you. I didn't invent it, but I do push it. I try to motivate myself by finding something easy to start with, but by now most of the easy stuff is done. Third draft editing. Well, if you're that far into it, at least you can just take this paragraph, this page. You can do that. I do have to tell you, sometimes just recently, I had finished a rough draft of my novel, and tackling the rewrite was overwhelming. And I thought about it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to work on the worst scene. I'm going to work on the scene that's just a mess, because anything I do will make it better. So, if you get something that's sort of half there, it can be hard. But if you've got something that's a gigantic mess and all you do is figure out just the order of events in the scene, if all you do is cut out the repetitions, you've done something. So I would say when your stuff is bad, feel good, because it means you have, whatever you do, it's going to fix it. It's going to make it a little better. Okay. Unrelated to writing, if you feel like going there, how does the guild pension work? Do the members get paid more per script while active at a higher pension, or does everyone get the same? No, everyone does not get the same. Here's the deal. And I am not an expert, and this is not full picture advice. This is just from as I understand it. Whenever you write something for the union, for the guild, in other words, when you are a union writer in the Writers Guild, every job you take, it's a union job. Therefore, the person who's paying you is obligated to pay a certain amount depending on the size of the budget and of the payment that they are making to you. They have to make a payment that is a percentage of that added into the pension and health fund. Health fund is for our insurance. Pension fund is that some of the money, like if you make X dollars, then 1/10 of X dollars is going to go into your pension, not everybody's pension. So every time you work, you are putting a little away. Well, the employer is putting a little away for you into your health fund and into your pension fund. So the more you work, the more that piles up. I had about 25 years worth, and I worked very hard during those 25 years. So at the end, my pension is calculated by how much I put in. And then they dole that out in some formula that I don't understand, but they'll tell you, this is how much you're going to get because this is how much you put in. That's the basic picture. Okay. Chaos Star, thank you for the answer. Actually, in my opinion, these are very useful concepts, the 4 character bits, for crafting characters and analysis. Briefly, the concepts mean this. Want is the character's conscious external goal. what they think will fix things, like win the race or save the city. Need is the inner growth the character truly requires, a truth, a virtue, a mindset that resolves their core flaw. Learn to trust, accept vulnerability. Lie briefly means this: the false belief the character lives by, usually formed by protect them from pain. I'm the only worthy if I succeed, or no one can be trusted. And finally, the ghost, not a concept in the strictly Jungian sense, the past wound or formative event that birthed the lie and keeps it alive, e.g. abandonment in childhood. People always leave, so don't like. Okay, so I get that. Those are things. Those are good things. They are not in every story. Not every story has somebody who has a flaw that is driving them. Not everybody has. So, like, yes, you almost always have something that you want, but whether or not that want and the inner growth are different, it may not be true. It could be that that thing you want is going to require you to have inner growth because you're going to face challenges and obstacles or unexpected things that you haven't done before, and that's going to make you grow. But that may not be different than the thing you want. So I guess what I'm saying is these are all things that can be true of characters, and as such, if they help you, cool. But just do remember that you are now writing a formula. In other words, if all characters have a inner flaw, it becomes a little boring to me. It becomes a little bit like, well, okay, now I know what to look for. I'm going to look for the flaw. If they do a good job of making the flaw interesting, I'll like it. But sometimes I want a story where I don't know what's going to happen, where I don't know that they're going to have to overcome their past wound and learn the truth of their need. That's just me. However, those are great, and if you find them applying to your characters and story, use them. Hasko says, I would love another series of videos where you're writing something from beginning to end, maybe a novel, maybe your next novel. Yes, here's the deal. Oh, and Life of Mine says, hey, it's the same. Okay, here's the deal. It will be a while. I will try to now start to do, I'm not going to do them live. And I'm going to do them live in that I'll be alive when I do them, but I'm not going to do them open to chat most of the time, because what I've discovered is that first of all, a lot of people come in, they just do AMA during my novel thing, and it means that anyone who's looking for the novel progress, they are spinning their wheels a lot. So what I'm going to do is shorter videos, like 20 minutes, where I just sort of catch you up on what I've been working with, what I've been dealing with, what I found out. And I will do them like this, just talking, and then I'll put them out live. I'll put them out, and you can watch them whenever you want. Eventually, when this novel is done, this novel is too hard, and I'm in over my head. So I'm going to just be focused on getting this novel done. When this novel is done, I will hopefully intend to start another one, which is designed to be done live, to be actually turn on the thing live and work and talk, and the thing I used to do with step-by-step script. Do remember, the step-by-step script project that I did knowing full well that the script would never go anywhere. I was not going to try and sell it. So I could afford to do the best I could, but the sharing was the point. The next project I do like that, I have to craft a novel which is going to be something I know I can do live, because it's actually hard. I with the novel I'm working on, I found myself very distracted when people are throwing questions at me because I'm still in over my head. The next novel down the line, if I get to do it, is a story that I've already outlined that I want to do very experimentally, just bits and pieces, so I can share that, because I'm going to be sharing the experiment. This novel, I'm just trying to get it done. Like I said to you guys, for me, the goal here is not to win the Booker Prize. It's to see if I can get this novel done as I intended, as I imagined it. That's already hard for me, because the truth is I've never done one like this. I wrote one novel many years ago, which I will publish at some point, that was written in the first person, but the first person was really like me. This first person is not like me. So I'm trying to learn how to do that. So that's what's going on with my novel and with the live stream. But it is my goal. It is my intent to do that again with this epic experimental novel that I've had in the works for many years and would love to share with you. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, getting this thing done. The problem with too many rewrites is simplifying my story, which wasn't my true intention. In other words, you mean because you're doing too many rewrites, you're simplifying more than you wanted? Because then I would say just stop rewriting. If you didn't want it to simplify, don't do it. Sorry, not sure I understand that one, Michael. Hi, Sonia. Thank you. I will try to work on one of the messy ones next. Dread has to be overcome. Yes, for those of you who are feeling troubled, you can't get yourself to write, I would ask that you watch this video because it really is my take on that. And the other one is this one, Getting Stuck or Lost. I'm just writing down. I will put these links to these in the description when I am done today. So I just had to make notes to do that. Those are the videos where I really try and give you specific ways to face the problem of just feeling like, I don't want to do this. I can't do it. When you say I don't want to do it, that's usually a specific fear. It's a specific problem. Like with me, I don't want to write my novel because I don't know how to write the language. So what I've been doing is doing everything else. I've been working on the outline. I discovered that there was a section in the middle that was repetitive. So I just spent the past 2 weeks just going through each of those scenes and saying, well, this scene and the one 5 scenes later, they're sort of the same thing. Can I combine them? Can I cut one and move it into the other? So that's avoiding, at least I'm solving other problems. And then the next phase will be simply writing it without style. That's what I'm going to do next, is at least get the action, the description, the event on paper in words. They won't be the right words, but at least I'll have like, okay, this, they met in this cafe and they had an argument and she left and he stayed. Whatever that is. And then what's the argument about? How does the argument get triggered? Did one of them coming in want it? In other words, all of those things are specific things that I can write. I can't quite figure out the vibe, the voice. But I can do everything else. And that's something I would suggest. If you have something specific that you're having a problem with, do everything else. And then eventually you'll, at least when you face that thing, everything else will be in pretty good shape. Doreen says, I'm curious if you would choose the words or the story if forced to choose what's more important to you in writing your novel. Neither, because I don't believe you either the novel can exist without either one. If the story isn't interesting to me and it doesn't work the way I want it to, which it mostly does, it actually really does, then there's no point in having words. And if the words aren't working, then the story won't come through. So what I just decided to do was get the story right and then worry about the words. Because the words can take me off into, like, if I think of a really cool way to describe somebody's feeling, but that feeling isn't appropriate to the scene, I'm going to get sort of attached to that description and their feeling is going to get yanked out of its real path. So that's the answer is, I don't believe you can choose between form and content, because without both of them, you don't have anything. You don't have a finished work. You might have bad content, you might have repetitive content or whatever, but to me, words and story, they're one thing. Okay. I would love to see those. I'm doing a tiny one now just for myself. Tiny what? Oh, just for self-tape. Oh, cool. Great. Yeah, just the practice is the key. Doing it just for yourself, that's a good idea. A novella or a short story, those are hard in their own way. Yeah, I've never done one. I can't do that. I only think of long things. I am really not great at short stories. Oh, good, thanks. All right. Waffer, Waffer. I'm sorry, I don't understand your name very well. Okay, maybe a bad question. Could not be a bad question. Is there any commonly given piece of writing advice that you personally hate or would even flat out condemn? Oh, there are so many. Yes, the first one I would say is the idea, there's the easy one. All scenes must have conflict. That's just not true. That is just not true. So that's a big one. Then commonly given piece of writing advice, there's so many. So many people say like, yeah, there is no such thing as a bad question. Commonly given, like a lot of people say like, you have to outline. That's not true. I personally feel it's helpful to outline if you are not writing naturally, but very often someone will have essentially written it in their mind, developed it in their mind, and they don't need an outline. Or some people really, really need to figure it out as they go along. So as much as I personally need an outline, I do believe that if you're having trouble, try an outline, but I don't believe that you have to have an outline. You don't have to have 3 acts. You can have 7. You can have 9. I don't know. There's the one I would say I flat out condemn is all stories must have conflict. All scenes. Most stories do have some form of conflict, but all scenes do not have conflict. Honestly, I'm going to say this. Any piece of advice that contains the word all or must, I flat out condemn that. There is no advice that I can think of that will be absolutely all must. There's just no, you must do this. Maybe, but I bet there's a way around whatever that must is. You must finish it. Yeah. I mean, that's probably true. You must write it. But you know what? No. I mean, suppose you wrote an entire thing in your head and never wrote it down, and you were happy with that. There you go. You're not going to sell it. But, I don't know. Script, I have a book in mind, but it's traumatizing to write about. That's an interesting puzzle. It is very often good to write about things that are deeply emotional to you. But when you're writing about things that are traumatizing for you to write about, you need to set up a routine that protects you. Like find something that you can, that will comfort you before and after. And I would also say break it down into small pieces, and as much as possible, depending on what the like if it's traumatic to you because you're talking about a thing that you find awful, try researching, try to distance yourself in some ways. And I would suggest having some kind of writing journal that you write alongside your writing. Oh, by the way, that's another good thing to do when you're feeling like you don't want to write. Work on, like a journal format, a notes format, and just write down like, okay, Thursday, really don't feel like writing. Write down why not. Because you'll say like, I don't think it's worth it. That's very different from I don't know how to do it. Those are two very different problems. And at least identifying what the problem is might help. So thought. Michael, I wrote a story and my brother said, you're the only one who understands it. Countless rewrites took the mystery from the story. I felt I had to provide an answer for every question. Well, if you don't want to do that, then tell your brother, okay, that's what it is. It's a story that I'm the only one who understands it. First of all, your brother could be wrong. Maybe other people would understand it. And further, There's lots of people who like stories that they don't understand. In other words, there's lots of art where you say, like, I can't really explain it, but I liked it. It gave me feelings. It gave me thoughts. You know, Terrence Malick, most of Terrence Malick's movies after the first three are I don't know that there is an answer. Francis Ford Coppola recently said, as far as I'm concerned, you work on a film because it's a question. Now, you may come up with an answer you like, but you may also leave it open to other people's interpretations. That's legit. So if you want this story to have some mystery, do it. Just recognize that there will be people who want an easier answer, and they will not like your story. On the other hand, there are some people who are really fed up with easy answers, and they will like your story. So you have to think about what is the way to get to the audience you want for the thing you want to do, but do the thing you want to do. If you want to do a thing that has some mystery and is not easily explained, just recognize you're probably going to want to, it's going to be an art film, or it's going to be a small press book, or it's going to be whatever it is that you're going to do in order to not have to confront the desire of the companies that are selling easy answers. They're going to say, we don't want your thing. So you're not going to get their money if you're doing a film or even if you're doing a book. So the answer is find the right path for the thing you want to do. If the thing you want to do doesn't fit the big commercial path, find another path. Don't give up on what you want to do. There's no point in doing something just because it's what they say to do. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is not a professional writing. If you are lucky to become a professional writer, and that is very, very, very hard, it is okay to not be professional. It is okay to be professional but not rich. You know, a lot of people, there are people who have published books with world-class publishers who still have to have a day job. That's okay. So just think about what it is that you want the piece to be, and then work towards making it that and trying to find the audience who wants that. There's no point in trying to give your work to an audience that doesn't want that thing. The question is, do the thing well for the people who want it, even if that's just a handful. Okay. Sonia says to Wafer, I personally would condemn every advice system that's saying like the inciting must happen on page 15. Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Anything that says like this must, if you hear should, must, you know, take it with a big grain of salt. It may be worth trying to do that, but you don't must. There's no all. Yeah, try to do small. This is the question about doing work that is traumatizing or painful or frightening or disturbing to you or sad to you, or that you feel vulnerable talking about. One thing you can do, if it's something personal, is try to recognize that the personal element will be buried under the art, and that's okay. You don't have to tell the absolute truth of yourself. You need to tell the emotional truth that you're trying to communicate through essentially a lie, essentially a fiction, a made-up thing, and that helps everyone. So that's okay. Even if you are doing deeply autobiographical work, you are going to be transforming it. Chaos Star, I think, lost in the shuffle. Why are good theorists often bad practitioners? Why are screenwriting teachers usually mediocre writers? Okay. It's not a practical question, my apologies. No, it's a fair question. All right, two things. One, if you are a really good writer, and see, good is so tricky because you can be a really good writer and not be able to make a living at writing. Absolutely possible, frequent actually, especially in Hollywood. But if you are a good writer and you have managed to find work most of the time you don't want to teach. You are too busy doing your own thing. The desire to teach is separate from the desire to do the thing. So what you get is a fair number of really good creators. They don't teach at all. And the ones who do, they teach by doing like a master class at the end of their career, or they'll do a Q&A session and answer some questions about their work. And the thing about that is what they are going to do, unless they are also working on being teachers, is simply reveal their way. And the one thing I keep telling everybody is every artist has their own way. You might take some that are like other people's, but your way is going to be your way. If Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or Akira Kurosawa has a way of doing it, that's because that suits them. It suits the time and place they work in. It suits the experience they had of learning, and it suits the nature of their mind and how they work. And that is different for everyone. So there isn't a right answer. A good teacher will say that, I believe. There are some teachers who believe in a formula. This is how you do it. They can be good at teaching that formula, but that is going to frustrate almost everyone who can't do that formula. I also personally believe that formulae usually hurt writing. They need to be engaged with personally and changed to be your version of it. Once again, everybody has to do their own work, find their own path. So that's the first reason is good writers probably are too busy to be teaching. If you are a screenwriting teacher, you probably are a person who is a somewhat frustrated writer. When I started teaching, and I really like teaching, and I had wanted to teach for a long time, but I was honestly too busy. After the financial crisis and the strike of 2008, took me about 2 or 3 years, but I ran out of jobs, and my work slowed down. Didn't stop, but it slowed down, and I said, I should try teaching in case work stops. It didn't, at least for another 10 years. But that's when I started trying to teach. I was like, okay, I went to UCLA Extension, did a couple of classes there and started to format how I would teach. But as soon as I got busy, I had to give that up because I couldn't do both teaching and writing. So the main thing you're going to run into with people who are teaching writing is they are probably not teachers. They didn't get into it because they wanted to teach. They're just teaching because they want to do a thing that's not paying. Now, a lot of those people discover in themselves a delight in sharing their vision of the craft, but a fair number are simply repeating what they were taught. And that's too bad because a lot of screenwriting teachers honestly don't have that much experience doing the job of screenwriting. Anyone can do the art of screenwriting, and everyone who wants to do it should do it. But the job of screenwriting is a whole extra layer. And up until very recently, there was no art of screenwriting separate from the job, because the only way that you could make a movie until very recently was to enlist the business, maybe the indie business, but still you needed tens of thousands of dollars, really hundreds of thousands or millions to make something. In the past 20 years, that's completely fallen apart. Because now anybody with a phone can make a movie. You can shoot and edit. It's good to get some equipment. It's good to get a good mic. It's good, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is, anyone can do it, which means that screenwriting or filmmaking has become an art like painting or poetry or playing the guitar, in that you can do that. You may not make a living at it, but you can do it. That means a good number of people who are teaching you wanted to be in the film business, went to film school or took classes, maybe got a little bit of work, but mostly they're trying to do it. They're trying to tell you what they learned. And what they learned doesn't include the actual experience of doing this very strange, very high pressure job. So my answer would be about why are good theorists bad practitioners, or mediocre. In other words, why, if you can't do, are you teaching? And if you can't teach, why are you doing it? Well, that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean. The answer is most people don't want to do both. It's like you might want to be a director, but directing is a whole other job. And if you're a screenwriter and you're like, oh, I'll just become a director of my scripts or whatever, that's a whole other thing to do. Teaching is a whole other thing to do. I happen to have a personal need to teach. But I have to tell you, I'm starting to find a need to separate out my teaching so that I have room to write. Because when I started teaching on YouTube, I said, for the first time in my life, I'm going to not do my own writing while I do this project. And for the past 5 years, that's what I did. I only did the teaching. And I tried to steer some of my creativity in it by writing a script as I taught it and stuff. But now I'm kind of feeling like I've said what I have to say about teaching, and I want to spend some time writing. And that means I have to do less teaching. So the answer is there is a natural conflict between teaching and doing. You can't do a lot of both. They're both very time consuming. They're both very energy consuming. And so the people who are really good or just really determined, they're not going to be teaching because it's too hard. And it doesn't pay that well. I mean, the thing is, like, you know, if you were doing it and you were getting like a load of money, probably more screenwriters would be doing that. Okay. Michael says, thank you. I'm not going to save the cat. I personally would not save the cat. Okay. Life of Mine says, it's very good for people like me that you chose to do this for free. I'm sure loads of people. Yes. No, I got that. Gotta go, but thank you so much. No problem. So long. Sorry you're gone. You're probably gone by now. Anyway, yes. When I started teaching, I was like, oh, I probably should make some money at this because it was before my pension kicked in, to refer to another problem. My pension only started when I was 62 or 63. And so for a year or two there, when the jobs did stop, I tried to make some money at teaching, which the only way I could really make money from teaching is one-on-one high-priced lessons. I felt very uncomfortable about that. It also was really, really so demanding. It's really hard to read somebody's script, give them notes. You really should read it twice or 3 times. It's a lot of work. Too much, so I stopped doing that. The genius behind American Beauty, it's centered on a man going through midlife and the people around him. In the end, everyone involved went through a personal revelation. That is true. That is, I'm not sure what that refers to, but yeah, American Beauty is it's an ensemble piece. There is a central story, but it is part of an ensemble, and all of the pieces of the ensemble kind of come together to get to the vision of the final scenes with the main character played by Kevin Spacey. Yeah, American Beauty is a fabulous, fabulous piece of work, and I say great. So I'm gonna stop now, because we're at the end of an hour, and that's great. So it's been good to talk to you all. Next week, try it again and try and give you some updates on my novel. Small steps. Recognize that most of the negative things you have are fear. And everything you do creatively, it takes practice. You're not going to get it all at once. You're not going to get it in one script. I wrote like 12 scripts before I really started to get pretty good at it. Okay. The Dunning-Kruger effect. We think we are better than we need to be early in the process. We learn that that's not true, often not until we become a YouTuber. Glenn does not have this problem. He's a veteran. But it took me a long time. It took me a while to get comfortable doing YouTubing which was a whole new thing. But yes, it does help that I started teaching after many, many, many years. Cool. Thank you. Yo, Angie. Angino. Okay. Yo. Hi. Great that you are here. Thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate it. You all take care. I will see you next week. Go write something.